Hello and welcome to All Things Foster, a place for coffee, connection, and community. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in today. We've got a great guest coming on today to tell her story of foster care and adoption. But before we get to that, I want to thank our episode sponsor, ETC Business Services. ETC Bookkeeping is a private company created in 2007 to provide bookkeeping, payroll, and tax services to help small business owners understand and manage their finances. Janie believes in the economic value small businesses add to keep our country strong and is grateful to foster and adoptive families who give children a safe place to grow up. It's her privilege to donate to help the Panhandle Orphan Care Network provide to those families, and you can find Jamie at www.etcjaniethomas.com or email her at Janie, that's Janie, at etcjaniethomas.com. And I'll tell you that Janie is a super, super great lady. And I am not an accountant. I will throw that out there for the world. I am not an accountant. And so Janie is super helpful for me when I've got an issue with some QuickBooks thing or something, and she's just great. So if you're needing help with bookkeeping, QuickBooks, any of that kind of stuff, she is fantastic. So give Janie a call. And that brings us to Deidra. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing, Matt?
I'm good. So Deidra and I connected. She is a foster mom, and so I wanted to bring her on to share kind of her story. So much about what we do on this podcast is to, we do better when we connect with people that are similar, that have similar struggles and similar beliefs and similar values and things like that. And so we try to bring folks on that have that. And then other weeks where we have resources like Dr. Kate Lund last week, where she talked about building resilience in kiddos and a couple of books that she's got out. And so if you haven't listened to those episodes, go back and check those out. But today we've got Deidra on, and she, like I said, she and I have connected. She is a foster mom. And so Deidra, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. I am a foster mom. I am married. Um, we have two uh, children that are ours, and then we have fostered 14 children, and we've been
Wow.
fostering since about 2010, I think, maybe 2015.
Wow. So why where did the desire, the passion, the what was the impetus behind the decision to start fostering?
Yeah. Two different sources. So first, my best friend's mom, when I was a little girl, she was just my second mom. And I loved her so much. And it was just amazing to have another person in my life that really cared about me. And, my own parents, great, but it was wonderful to have her in my life too.
Mm,
The other source of inspiration is from one of my sons. He is adopted, and he actually has some brothers and a sister, but because of the circumstances in his first family, they weren't, they were placed for adoption. And you know what? The adoption agency made separate plans for the
mm,
children, and the siblings were placed in different homes, and they have great families. But it also was a really big loss for
sure.
them to not only, to go to these new families, but also to lose that sibling bond. And so, actually, when we foster, we specifically foster sibling groups.
Mm, wow. And so you said 14 kiddos that have come through in about the last 10 years or so.
Yeah,
Wow.
correct.
That's awesome.
Exactly.
That's so what so then what was the take us back to that first time somebody calls you and says, "Hey, we're bringing you some kiddos." What does that look like for you guys?
Yeah. It was such a roller coaster of emotions. You get a phone call and you just don't know when you're going to get that call. And I had just recently had surgery, and so, but I was like, "Oh, should we do this? Should we say yes?" But, there's never a perfect moment in
Yeah.
time. And so we were like, "Yeah, we're gonna do this." And, we jumped right in, and, they had said it was an emergency placement. So they called, and, just a few hours later, we had, 2 children walk in our front door, and, just they immediately walked in and they started exploring our house, and I'm like, "Why, hello." So, yeah, and, they stayed with us for 2 years. Yeah.
2 years.
Mhm.
That's so what are some lessons? What are some things that you maybe didn't know going in, or you thought you knew that you learned real quick you didn't really know, or things like that?
Yeah. Oh, wow. So many things. Um, and I think probably the biggest thing that I didn't fully appreciate was just how much I was really going to admire the parents and the grandparents and the siblings and aunts and uncles and cousins of kids in care.
Mm,
It was one of these things where, I mean, it was really obvious at the outside of, yes, they are going to be children. But, it's not something that is always deeply thought about, of like all of their extended family that still want to maintain connections with
mhm,
the children while they're in care.
yeah,
And yeah, so and then I think too, I don't know exactly what I thought what the parents would be like, but I am constantly just amazed by them. And I am happy to call many of them friends.
good, good. There sometimes there can be a really, um, adversarial relationship with the family, whether it's the mom and the dad or the
Hmm.
grandparent or this or that, because they're we say this all the time. We're not they there's a cycle. I mean, there is a real cycle that perpetuates when kiddos come into care. So many of the kids that are in care now, their parents were in care, and so there's this thought process a lot of times that that, oh my god, those people are so awful, when in reality, hurting people hurt people, and we so often become that which was done to us, and so
Mm.
so the most foster parents that I know, they're rooting for. I mean, we no nobody
Oh,
nobody out there in the foster care world is like, oh, let's death to the bio family. um they 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 want this relationship to become better, to become more beneficial, and to grow and things like that. And so I do think that there's a lot of thought process out there that that foster families just you know trying to steal kids or something like that, when in reality
um,
they're just trying to provide a safe and stable, loving home until the kiddos can end up back where they need to be, where it's beneficial, and it's safer and things like that.
yeah. I mean, I always think, but for the grace of God go I, right? Because
Right.
there's so many, difficult things that can happen in a person's life. You know,
Mhm.
um, for example, you could have a catastrophic injury at work, and and then rightfully take some opioids to treat the
Mhm.
pain, and then become addicted,
Yeah.
right? or as you kind of mentioned before, there is intergenerational trauma, right?
Mm.
I know a family where literally, when I've had conversations with them, it's gone back to the great great grandparents where
Yeah.
there was, a variety of different abuse. And if that's
Mm.
what you grew up with, it's really hard to overcome.
Yeah.
Or mental illness, nobody asks for mental illness. It is an illness, and it comes up, and what are you going to do about it? And
Mm.
sometimes people just need some time,
Mm.
without kids in their home and with some supports outside to be able to fix what needs to be fixed in their families so that the kids can come back to them.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I always try to do is, when a child is placed with you, you get this information about the family, about the parents specifically, that talks about why the kids came into care. But it's only going to look at the negatives. And
Mhm.
so I always try to reach out very early on and say, look, you know, they're only going to show me the negative things that brought the kids into care. I want to know you as a whole individual.
Right.
So please tell me, what do you like to do? And what are your hobbies? And, just tell me a little bit about your life. And I think that people respond very well to that. And
Yeah.
I always also talk about how, my intention of, wanting their families to be able to reunite, and that, I ask them about their opinions of what are the things that are important to them for their children. So I know that I can, um, oftentimes try to continue some of those things
Mhm.
in our home while the kids are living here.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what's a favorite memory? Uh, Whether it could be a circumstance of, some something happens with some kiddos, or
Mhm.
maybe a reunification. What is something that stands out that's like, oh my gosh, this was so amazing.
Yeah. So, we've been fostering for quite a while, and one of the children that we had fostered early on turned 18. And when she had gone home, her family, for a variety of reasons, had made a decision that they didn't want to have ongoing contact with us.
Hmm.
And we're just like, oh, that is so hard. But then once this child turned 18, she reached out to us,
Mm.
and she's like, you know what? Thank you so much for
Yeah.
being there. And she got a full ride to an Ivy League university.
Mm.
And I was just like, "Oh, wait a second, I was the one who, um, who went and did that extra paperwork so that she could be in the advanced classes, even
Hmm.
though, social workers, teachers, they're all telling me, you know what, when kids are in foster care, they, oftentimes they're overwhelmed by things going on in their life, and they can't be in a very academic, rigorous program." And I'm like, maybe generally, but not this child. This
Sure.
child needs this, wants this. And yeah, so it's just amazing to see, like, years down the road, both that love and knowing that you made a big impact in this child's life, and both in terms of like their heart, but also for their career and their academic journey. So yeah,
Yeah.
so that was one. The
Yeah.
other
We had a
thing,
Go
yeah, so
ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's like, because I have a heart for siblings, and the um we have fostered a sibling group, and um we had three of the siblings, but there were a total of 10 children. And yeah, I know, right? A huge
Mm.
family. Um, And so, for they were in different homes and so forth, and being able to, um, arrange social outings with them,
Mm,
whether it was going to a baseball game or going to the park together, and just continuing to see, like, when they get together, of just like this joy of like,
mm,
oh, yes, here I
yeah,
am. I get to see you again. I get to play. I get to have fun, and I've missed you. And it's an amazing experience when you can bring these siblings together.
sure. Yeah, I was gonna say there was a kiddo that lived across the street from us, and his experience was not great. Um, and he ended up going to stay at kind of a uh, ranch for kiddos that have difficulties, and
Hmm.
he showed up on our porch, 3 or 4 years later, was like, you know he graduated high school, he was going off to college, and he was like, man, you guys just, your family was just so important to us and things like that, and it is, you're like, man, we made an impact on this kid's life,
Yeah.
and so those are huge, huge wins, you just count yourself blessed to be able to um participate in that success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. What's one of the hardest things you've run into?
Hmm. Yeah. So, um, there is no other way except for to love the children that are in your home. And, when they talk about the trauma that they've experienced, it's just, oh, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And, it's just, it's heavy. I was, with a child once. We were at McDonald's, and we're coming back, from a doctor's appointment. And he says to me, he says, I don't normally like to eat because, this relative of mine used to make me eat my own vomit. And I'm just like,
Mm.
what? How in the world? How
Yeah.
in the world do you process that? And for this child, it was just a fact of life. And there's many other stories like that, of where, they've had some very heavy trauma,
Yeah.
and you sit there and you bear witness, and you help them process that by listening, by being there. And but still, it's yeah, it's heavy.
It's heavy. It's super heavy. Um, what are things that really help as you walk this path?
Mm, gosh. You know what? I am so gosh darn lucky, because I have so many wonderful people in my life. Obviously, starting within my own home, right? My husband and my two sons, they are amazing. But above and beyond that, right? So there's extended family, there are friends, there are neighbors. There's people that you meet through support groups that are in person or online. Um, other foster parents. It's just like those connections with other
Mm.
people. That is what uh, I think really helps you get through, because one person, they're going to be really awesome at navigating the foster care system. Another person is going to be like, hey, I'm going to volunteer to babysit for you.
Yeah.
Another person is going to be like, hey, you know what, why don't I teach that young boy in your house, why don't I have him come over, and we're going to do some car repair. And
Mm.
I mean, whatever it is, um having those people kind of show up for you, that just, that it is, that you're not alone. And yeah, and you just feel so supported.
Yeah, that is one of the biggest challenges I think that foster families face, is the fact that you feel so alone. You feel like
Hmm.
nobody else understands what in the world you're going through, and just we do better in community. We do better when we have folks around us that that understand what we're going through, and that makes such a huge impact to folks that are just struggling, you know.
Yeah. And I think there's different things that you turn to people for, right? So, the experience of being a foster parent, there are similarities to being a biological or adoptive parent or a step parent, but it is not the same.
Yeah.
And I mean, you are raising somebody else's children. It is meant to be temporary. These kids have, a lot of trauma to process. So a lot of times there could be things, behaviors that come along with it. Um, Maybe their parents weren't able to keep them up to date on medical appointments. And so you've got a lot of other things to be doing. And it is the trying to understand how to work with a social worker and, what it's, this whole experience. And, it really, if you reach out and make those connections with other foster parents, I think that is where you get a lot of that support of someone else who's been walking the same walk. But
Mm.
at the same time, those other people who could be like, like I said, they are the ones who are like, hey, you know what? I'm going to the grocery store. Can I pick you up something while I'm there?
Yeah.
you know I mean, it's much later. Or, hey, you know what, it's been a while since you've gone out. Why don't you and I go out and we'll just go do something fun, and you don't have to think about anything that's going on in your household or your life right now. We're just going to go out and have fun.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of different ways to be supported. I would say make those friends with other foster parents if you can, and then rely upon your family, your other friends, your neighbors, your church community, your coworkers for support in other ways.
Yeah, sure. So, other than, a friend reaching out and doing something, or a another foster family or something, are there other things that, that you're like, man, somebody did this for me and it made it helped so much. Maybe it's something that somebody else could say, oh my gosh, I could do that. I could,
Yeah.
bring them dinner the
Hmm.
night that a placement or I could do this or that. Is there something that other than what you've said that someone could do that you feel like, man, if somebody would do that for another foster family, that would make a huge difference?
Yeah. Okay, so you know that I'm way into fostering siblings. One of the big challenges is just having enough beds.
Mm.
And so, if your kids have grown, and you've got some bunk beds, you know, look to see if there's a way for, to donate this to, your local agency that provides foster care,
Hmm.
because that could be the difference of, a sibling staying with, their brother or sister,
Yeah.
is just a bed.
Yeah,
And I mean,
I
that's
took a placement
transformative.
package up to a little town north of here, and it was a grandparents were bringing in their three granddaughters, and they had a bunk bed, but they didn't have
Hmm.
mattresses for the bunk beds, and so yeah, those kinds of material support mechanisms, they make a
Yeah.
huge difference.
Yeah, I mean, it's a one-time thing, right? If you just had it and you're just like, okay, hey, yeah, we weren't using it anymore,
Yeah,
Our
sure.
kids are grown, or we upgraded to a bigger bed or something, that can just
Hmm.
really make a huge difference. I
Yeah.
think, one of the things that I don't think people realize is that, depending on what state you're in, between 50 to 80% of sibling groups are separated in foster care.
Right.
Yeah, and, that's the longest, a sibling relationship is the longest relationship you will have in your life.
Yeah.
It is the relationship that you have from, when you're an itty bitty kid, all the way to your dying day. And, most of us outlast our parents, and our significant others don't come into our lives until we're adults. So, yeah, that's going to be their longest relationship. And if you can help them save that and have that close relationship, yeah. So, yes. So thank you to those people that have donated beds and mattresses.
Right.
It has
Yeah.
been amazing.
Yeah. So talk to us about what was it like getting licensed? I mean, was it chaos? Was it easy? What was it
Mhm.
like?
Yeah, to get licensed. So there's we did in-person classes. So this is a while ago. So we did in-person classes, and gosh, I don't remember how long it took. It took a while, you know, showing up on some Wednesdays, some Saturdays. And it was nice because they fed us actually, so that was good. But I think just opening it up and talking about your parenting style, your relationship with your significant other, what your own family history is like. Oh gosh, it felt a little intimidating, but honestly, they're not there to, um, you know, it's not a gotcha, they are not there. They want to rule you in. They're not looking to, oh my gosh, we're going to try to find something that so that we can throw you out of the program. They want you to be able to stay in. And if they have any kind of concerns, they will, be like, hey, what about this? And then you have an opportunity to explain a bit more, or if they want you to do something, you can remedy something or other, So I think that's that vulnerability that was probably the hardest part. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah, because I
Uh,
mean, they're not, they're trying to find families that are going to be safe and stable and loving and
mm,
things like that for these kiddos, and so it's not, they're not just they used to. I think back when I was in the foster system, I mean, if you had a pulse, I think they they would get
mm,
you licensed, um, but yeah, so it's not an easy process, but worthwhile, right?
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
definitely worthwhile. Um, so if you were going to talk to somebody that was saying, "Hey, I might do that. I might do that." What are some things that you would say? Hey, okay, before you get into this, you should think about this. You should do this. You should maybe work on that. Something like that.
So, okay, Matt, I'm just gonna tell people to go do it. I mean that's the honest thing of like, because people do, they come up and they ask me, hey, I've thought about it. And I'm like, you know what, there is no perfect time and there is no perfect parent. So, jump in and do it, the time is now. If
Yeah.
you are, hey, if you're someone listening and you've been thinking about, hey, should I do this? And you've been waiting for a sign, this is the
Here's your
sign.
sign, right?
Yeah, and there's the Peace Corps slogan, which is the toughest job you'll ever love. But I think that the truth of it is that being a foster parent is the toughest job you will ever love.
Mm,
So hard, yes, but it is so rewarding, so amazing, and it's going to enrich your life in so many different ways.
yeah. So speak to that. There's that whole. I could never love them the way I could love my own kids or whatever. Speak to that.
Yeah. So I have a biological son. I have a son through adoption, and we have fostered 14 kids. I loved them all. And, I think each kid you're going to connect to in a different way
Mm,
because each one is unique. They're going to have their own personalities, their own stories, their own likes and dislikes. And so, it's not really, to me, it's not about like it's not about genetics. It's about really appreciating who someone is. And if you
mm,
can appreciate who someone is, then you're gonna love them,
Yeah.
you know? So yeah, I wouldn't worry about that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't worry about it. And like look, if there's um, putting that kind of personal philosophy aside, if there comes a situation um that arises in your home that is, wow, I don't know, I can't do this, there's whatever that kind of comes up, um, there is always that option to ask the child to be moved to another place. And I don't advocate moving a child out of your home. I don't. But I think sometimes knowing, maybe in the back of your mind, um, that that can maybe just be like, hey, I'm doing this because I choose to do this. I'm doing this because my heart is in it, and if things get way way beyond my control, there is something. There's another avenue,
Mm.
um, and like I said, I think that once are open with your social worker, and with your support system, saying like, oh my gosh, this is so hard, you know I am, a lot of times too, like, oh gosh, I'm working, and there's all these other commitments that go along with fostering a child above and beyond the actual parenting, and I'm feeling overwhelmed. And you know what, then people can come in and they can help you out in all sorts of different ways if you can just be a little bit vulnerable
Mm.
and admit it and let people help.
Yeah, for sure. So, what do you think? What is the biggest single impact that fostering has made in your life?
Gotta choose just one. I mean, it changes like everything,
Mm.
Um, because I think it makes you a better person,
Mm.
you develop more patience. You begin to realize the story that people walk around with, the
Mhm.
you just be like, oh, oh, you might think like, oh, such and such a person is, I don't know, not a nice person. But then, when you get to know what all people carry and that they don't what but is not publicly said,
Mm.
then your heart grows for people. And so, now, if somebody's cutting me off in traffic, I'll be like, you know what? Maybe something really bad is going on in their life right
Yeah,
now. And you know what? I'm just going to extend some grace to them,
sure.
and that's going to be fine. And so I see this kind of showing up in all different places in my life, right? I think it makes me better at my job. I think I'm a manager at work. I think it makes me a better manager. It makes me a better parent to my two sons who are permanently with us. Um, I think it makes me a better wife, just to be like, hey, you know what? People are doing the best that they can
Yeah.
in the moment. And so, um, yeah, it's just a transformational way of thinking.
Mm.
And so, yeah, foster care has done that for
Yeah.
me. It's being a foster parent.
Yeah, it is. It's an eye-opening experience for sure, but I think one that's just, man, it's so critical. It's there's so many there's so many kids in my part of the state. There's over 600 kids a year that come into the
Mm,
26 counties. Um, and that's a whole lot of kids.
yeah.
And so we need not just here in Amarillo, across the country. There are nowhere near enough beds for these babies
Yeah.
as they're going through these difficult things. And so
Yeah. So
um,
now, one of the things that I uh, feel strongly about is professionalizing foster care,
mm,
or being a foster parent, I should say, because the reality is that so many of us, we, both, if we're in if we have a significant other and if we're two adult home, right? We got to
Mhm.
work.
Yeah.
Um, or if you're a single individual, you got to work.
Yep.
And so, you're going to be doing your 40-hour plus job per week. And then, as I had mentioned a little bit earlier, was that, there is this, it's not just parenting the child. There's so many other things that go
Mhm.
into this, right? It's
Yep.
um you know it's the finding the time for the social worker to visit, for the lawyers to visit, for the court appointed special advocate to visit. It's driving kids to the visits with their parents. It's taking them to the doctor's office, the dentist office. It's the special education meetings with schools. It's having tutoring at home to help them catch up.
Mm.
It's taking them to see their therapist, or all these many other things that kind of go into being a foster parent.
Right.
And I think when there were more people who were staying at home, there was a lot, there were one parent was working and one was staying at home. I think that there was more opportunity, right? As you're raising your own children, be like, okay, I can add in another child. That seems much more reasonable. But, um, you know, right now the state in the United States, the state that has the highest percentage of um, having a parent stay at home is Mississippi. And you want to
Mm.
know what percentage of households has like a stay at home parent?
How many?
Six 6.5%.
Wow.
That's the top one in the United States. And Texas is number three,
Yeah.
but they're at 3.5%.
Golly.
So, 3.5%. So, if you're asking somebody, to do, like I said, it takes a lot.
Yeah.
You have to educate yourself, how to parent differently. Because if you're parenting traumatized kids, your regular parenting techniques are not going to cut it.
So true.
You need to step up. You need to step up. And, there's going to be a lot more involved. And if, parents, if foster parents were recognized as the professionals that they are
Mm.
and had an income, I think that you would see more people being willing to do this. I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, because they say, well, those foster parents, they do it for the money, and it's like, now wait a minute. I mean, hold on a minute,
No,
because whatever the state is paying, I mean, it is not remotely covering the expenses
no,
that you're incurring, because I mean, it's not quote unquote the cost of what a normal kid, because every time they scrape their knee, you got to fill out a form. Every time you got to give them a dose of Advil because they got a headache or a fever.
yep,
There's a form. It's this, it's that, it's so on
hmm,
and so forth. So many things, and so
yeah,
there's you're not making money uh by fostering, and so so the state being willing to to provide a little bit more resources to the families. I mean, golly, that would be
yeah.
huge.
I mean, this is the whole thing, right? I mean, the lawyers that represent the children, they get paid. Does it mean that they're only doing it for the money?
Right.
No. The social workers, they get paid. Are they only doing it for the money? No, nope, they are not.
Mm-mm.
Teachers, they get paid. Are they only doing it for the money? I guarantee not, because teachers don't get paid half enough as they should.
Yeah.
But, I mean, just because you get, I think the reality has changed. I think the system was originally set up when, a much more traditional household was in play, right?
Mm.
Where, the husband was out working and the wife was staying at home raising children. Uh, And I think it was back in a time where, more people were having more children,
Mhm.
I mean, now, and there's a lot of people out there who opt not to have any children.
Yeah.
Um, and, our housing is, correspondingly smaller. And so yeah, it's just to say, like, hey, you know what, I am here, I'm a professional, and I if I was compensated for this, there's
Yeah.
so much more that I could be able to do and give, you
Right.
know
Yeah.
and kind of all of the professionals involved in the foster care system, I would argue that the foster parent is doing the most important job.
Right.
They're the they are the ones who are going to tuck that kid at night after they've had a nightmare, you know?
Mhm.
They're the ones, when they, fall on the playground, they're the ones who are going to take them to emergency room and make them feel safer.
Mm.
They're the ones who are going to love them and instruct them and, do all the things for them. They're going to have the biggest influence on this child while they're in care.
Mhm.
And yet, we don't want to provide uh, any recognition in a monetary form for that. And
Yeah.
oftentimes, quite frankly, even in the foster care system, foster parents aren't necessarily listened to.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the one person in that courtroom who probably has the best idea what the kid needs, and the one that has no voice.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, so Deidra, thank you so much for coming on. Um, if you are interested, wherever you're at, get online, do some research, there are foster agencies that kind of focus on different things, do different things, and things like that. So find a foster agency, go to an informational meeting. um, Between half and two-thirds of the foster parents in folks in the country that get foster licensed, between half and two-thirds quit within the first year because they don't feel supported by their community. So if you're not foster licensed and you want to help somebody that's foster licensed, and just get on Facebook, get on Instagram, get on somewhere and say, hey, I want to help somebody who's out there that needs some help. I guarantee you'll be inundated with with foster parents that are desperate for some help. And so we provide placement packages for kiddos coming into foster care. So that placement package costs us about $430, and so we're there
Mhm.
within 24 hours of that kiddo getting placed by that agency. And so we're bringing clothes and diapers, and every kid gets a suitcase, a Bible, a teddy bear, a book, a toy, and a blanket. All kids get that. And then over and above that, they get whatever the family needs. Like I said a little while ago, you know, twin bed mattresses or clothes and shoes, socks,
Baby
underwear,
formula.
baby I mean, we do a lot of formula bottles. I talked to a foster mom a few weeks ago, and this little girl showed up at their house at like 8 o'clock at night, and there was a can of formula in the diaper bag, and it was empty. And it's 8 o'clock at night. She's an hour from any Walmart, where she can buy formula. And so
Mhm, mm.
what is she going to do? How's she going to feed this baby that probably hasn't been fed in the past 4 or 5 hours with no formula? And so, so we need folks to become placement package partners. So they set up to give us $100 a month, which buys us all the clothes for a placement package, or $50 buys us a case of diapers, or $10 a month buys us an outfit each month. Those kinds of things. We've got Trade Wars, which is our annual fundraiser, which is coming up here
Mhm.
in a few weeks, and they can come out and they can they can shoot at our sporting clay event, or set up a Moses Closet drive, or maybe you want to set up a Moses Closet wherever you're at. There are a ton of ways to get involved just with us and with so many different agencies, whether it's the foster agencies, whether it's a church that's got a group that helps foster families, or some other nonprofit. There are so many different ways to get involved, and so that is our big thing, is to get folks to be involved, to support the families that are doing the work of bringing these babies in, providing them that safe and stable, loving home. And so Janie with ETC Bookkeeping will have a link to her in the show notes below, and then the link to our website and things like that. But Deidra, thank you so much for coming on, just being real and sharing your experiences. I feel like if the community at large knew more about what foster and adoptive families go through on a daily basis, then hopefully, number one, there would be more foster and adoptive families out there. And number two, those that say, well, I can't do that, I can do this, whatever this is, whether it's, bringing somebody a meal, or we're bringing them some clothes or some formula or whatever it is. And so Deidra, thank you so much for coming on and sharing. And thank you, Janie, for your episode sponsorship. And guys, have a great day. Thanks, Deidra, so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
Absolutely.